Turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro electro tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech. And on the bench here, I am wrapping up this Marantz Model 2270. I am in the relamping phase right now. So I'm going to go into some detail on how to relamp one of these units here. It's a little bit more involved than some of the others, but it's not a real huge deal in the grand scheme of things. Starting with the dial face lamps, these fuse style lamps, 4 out of the 5 were burned out. I'm going to be replacing them all. I left the good one in place, but they're all coming out nonetheless. Now let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit closer so that I can mention these other indicator lamps in here for the various modes. You know, auxiliary, tape, AM, FM, phono 1, phono 2, and of course the stereo indicator. All of these lamps are fortunately good. I'm not going to replace them. They're a little bit more involved to replace. Again, nothing horrendous. It's just that you have to remove a few screws from the from the back side and pull the circuit board out, and then the indicator lamps here are soldered to the board. So anyways, I'm going to get into a little bit of detail as far as the prep work involved before you start relamping this unit. Okay, and getting started, how do we know we're dealing with bad lamps versus another issue, such as a connection issue, a blown fuse? Well, we're going to stick with just bad lamps. I'm not going to touch on troubleshooting other issues right now. I will just mention in brief that yes, sometimes on the back of the board, on the back of the lamp housing, on the circuit board, you can have bad solder joints, compromised connection somewhere on the board. Even the lamp sockets themselves, these lamp holders, I've seen them badly oxidized, tarnished. I've even seen these type of fuse, these fuse type of holders here, that have loosened up, and the bulb is not making really good contact there. So sometimes you need to tension them, retension them, kind of squeeze them slightly together a little bit, and then of course clean the contact surfaces and whatnot, and then you're good to go. So there's other possibilities, like I said, but I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. I'll just continue forward with bad lamps. So in confirming that we have bad lamps versus something else, there's a couple ways to go about that. One of the easiest ways, of course, is just a quick continuity test. I'm not going to get into settings on the DMM and all that, because they vary a little bit. Most modern DMMs have just a straightforward continuity setting, so just check that out. There's all kinds of information on that, but you can see that when I touch these probes together, they're making contact, obviously, so we have a beep. Now these bad lamps that I have here, they have open filaments, so I'm not going to get a connection through the filament, of course, because they're open. Okay, and you can see all of them here, they're just dead. Whereas the one that I left in place here that's good, okay, and a matter of fact, let me just pull it out, because like I said, I'm replacing all of them. I just left that in there just because it was good and it was lighting up. So let me remove it. Okay, and I'll set it here, and then we'll get our meter and perform the same little test here. Okay, and because it has a good filament, we're making a connection there, and beep, beep, beep. So there you go. And another thing we can do is confirm that we have AC voltage in this case on the individual lamp sockets themselves. And I'm not going to get into setting your meter up for that. Just set it on AC, and different meters have different settings, but just set it on AC voltage. And anyways, I'm just going to want to read across. These are the individual lamp sockets here. We have one here, 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 total of 5. And all we're going to do is read across. Let me see if I can get, yeah, I can get the meter here in frame along with this socket, and I'm just going to go across the 2 points here. Doesn't matter what the polarity is in this case, and we have what, yeah, about 7 volts there. So we're good, okay? And that's the same across the entire dial face there. They're all reading just fine. Okay, so I kind of went in reverse order a little bit, not a big deal. I started talking about the lamps and testing them first, but I didn't mention anything about gaining access to the lamps on the front of the dial face here. I'm going to talk about the lamps for the meters here on the back side, because you have to gain access from them on the back side, and I've already started that process, but I'll kind of show you in just a moment. But anyways, gaining access, when removing the main faceplate, which is these 4 screws, okay, there's a couple up here and a couple down here, remove the face, and you're left with this this acrylic piece of dial face here, okay, that rests in here within this frame, all right, this metal frame here. And anyways, you could see the leftover adhesive residue on the back side of the acrylic. You can see some of it here, along with little bits and pieces of that vellum type paper that they used that has to be replaced as well for diffusion purposes, to diffuse the lamps so that it doesn't look harsh coming through the dial face here, the acrylic. So I already have a couple pieces cut to size here, okay? It's just the this vellum type paper. I'm going to use 2 of them, you know, back to back and situated down on the acrylic there, adhered in place. And then I'm going to, of course, reapply when I get everything cleaned off. I'm going to reapply my you know, my double-sided adhesive tape and all that. Now, in preparing to do that, of course, I need to clean things off here. For the metal surface here, I'm just going to use maybe a swab or a rag and some acetone to cut through that quick, dissolve it, and get that adhesive off. I'm not going to use acetone on the acrylic, though, because of the screen printing and all that stuff. But I'll use something a little more mild. I'm just going to use a swab and some 99% alcohol and just kind of carefully loosen things up a bit until I get it clean enough to apply my my first layer of adhesive tape. I say first layer because I need to apply a layer so that I can set my my diffusion material. I'm going to use that vellum paper I just showed you. You can also use photographic diffusion material like those gels, those diffusion gels. I have a lot of that because of my life as a professional photographer, but I'm not going to cut out a piece of gel material. I have that stuff packed away, all my gels and a lot of my equipment. But I had access to some of this vellum type paper, so that was easier for me just to cut some of that out. And I'm going to put an adhesive layer down first, set the papers in place, the diffusion material, and then I'm going to put another layer of you know, double-sided tape, and then lay the lay this acrylic panel back in its frame there. Okay, so that's really all there is to it, and I'll kind of go into actually doing that and kind of show you a little bit of before and after. So that's about it. And then once I get the front done here, then I'll move around back and show you what it's all about as far as gaining access to the lamps for the meters here. Okay, so I softened it up with some acetone. I just ran that acetone along the adhesive that was left over, kind of softened it up a little bit, and now I'm just using an X-Acto knife and just working my way through on the metal here anyways. And you can see it's peeling off okay. All right, you see that coming off, good enough. And then after I peel off the bigger pieces, whatever is left over, I'll run some acetone on a rag over it again. So there you go. Okay, so most of the surface here is clean. I say most because there's probably some tiny little residual smears of that adhesive. Yeah, maybe not. It's pretty good. Anyways, so the acetone did a good job along with the X-Acto knife. It softened it up like I already said. But it wasn't miraculous though, okay? There's no instant gratification. You have to do the work. It did take a little scraping and wiping with a rag multiple times, soaked in a little bit of acetone like I said. And again, it did a good job. There's other things that could have been used too, like a naphtha is pretty good. I use that a lot to remove like gunky, sticky adhesives and all that. But I'm out of naphtha, so I just used acetone. That's what I had available. And of course, some anhydrous alcohol, 99%, works pretty good too. That'll loosen things up. There's a few different things you can use. Sometimes you have to experiment with different adhesives and the way a particular solvent reacts with the adhesive, because it's not all the same across the board is what I'm trying to tell you. But yeah, it worked okay. Okay, so now back to the acrylic piece here, the acrylic faceplate. Like I said a little earlier, you just want to be careful with the numerics and the text. On the back side, they used, I think, like some kind of a mask or silk screening or something like that. So you just want to be gentle with that. And it seems like the 99% anhydrous alcohol is just fine for that. You always want to experiment on a small section, whatever you're using, and before going for broke and really applying it on thick. So I've been working on it a little bit here, and as you can see the line here that's cut through the adhesive residue, and I've just been saturating a swab with 99% anhydrous alcohol, like I said. But because the alcohol dries up pretty quick, you have to keep reapplying it and all that, but the adhesive soaks it up pretty good, and when you're working it across and as it's soaking it up, it loosens up the adhesive pretty good. And I know my hand's in the way and all that, but there's only so much I can do. But it's working. It's cutting through. But it's not miraculous though. Oops, and I broke the swab because I am pressing down pretty good. And I'm not a big fan of these wood swabs for this purpose, but that's all I have in the shop right now. I have to order some more stuff. I'm low on a few supplies, but anyways, yeah, this stuff, as you can see here, it's coming off pretty good. I've already loosened up this section, and again, you have to really saturate that adhesive with a pretty good amount of anhydrous alcohol while you're rubbing the swab across and doing the obvious and cutting through. Little by little, it will just come right off. See, it's starting to cut through that. And down here, you'll notice that most of it is off. There's still the sticky stuff, but if I keep going over it with a saturated swab, it loosens it up pretty nice to the point where I was able to just kind of roll my finger across, and it just kind of starts peeling off. So it will dissolve it and break it down, is my point. So there you go. It's not miraculous. It's not instantly going to come off. It's it's not a miracle like the parting of the Red Sea or anything, but you'll get there, and without damaging the mask here or what they call that, silk screening that they used, if you're nice and careful. All right, so it took a lot of effort to get the sticky off the acrylic dial strip there, and I ended up ditching these part of the way through and just using a rag. You know, I just soaked a corner of a rag with some alcohol and just kind of swiped my way across. I kept breaking these swabs here. I recently restocked and bought another brand, and they're kind of flimsier than the heavier duty ones I had before, and they have less cotton material on them, so I'm not a big fan of them. I won't buy them again. But anyways, yeah, I just used the rag and it was okay. Once I was fairly confident that you know, I could get a little bit heavier on the wiping, because you do have to kind of incrementally build up, okay? Because you, like I said, you don't want to scrape off anything that doesn't need to be scraped off, and you know, like I said, the mask or the, you know, silk screening, whatever. So you got to be careful and just kind of build up to it, and that's about it. So that's what I did. Everything's looking good. I'm going to get the contacts. Let me go ahead and zoom in on these here. The lamp contacts there, or sockets. All right. And I will use the swabs for those. That's okay. So I'll get these done, and like I said a moment ago, I'm going to retension all of the sockets with needle nose pliers. Again, if you're going to do this, just be careful. Don't squeeze too hard. You just barely need to squeeze them just to assure good contact. So you get the point of what I'm doing with the cleaning and the retensioning, and I will be back in just a moment when I have the bulbs in. Okay, bulbs are in, and like I said before, I put the diffusion material, adhere the diffusion material back in place, and get the acrylic dial face strip there back in place. I of course want to test everything. Okay, and there you go. So we have our bulbs working. So I'm going to go ahead and close this section up, and then we'll move around to the back and I'll show you what's involved in getting the lamps replaced in the meters here. Okay, and here's our diffusion layer in place. Okay, you can see that. And now I'm going to get the acrylic strip put back on. Okay, and our acrylic dial face plate is back in place. All right, with the diffusion material behind it, as I pointed out, so looking good. Now let's move on. And I almost forgot to mention the two-sided adhesive tape that I'm using is this Thermoweb super tape. There's other stuff out there, and you'll just have to do your homework. I know 3M used to put out something similar, but I don't know if they still do or not. It's been a while. But anyways, this is good stuff, and it's thermally resilient as far as, you know, in this situation where we're adhering this acrylic plate in front of these lamps. So there you go. Okay, so unfortunately I'm going to have to hand hold this shot. I'll try to keep things as steady as I can, but you know, it is what it is. So anyways, let me try to hold this camera without blocking the little microphone on top. So in order to access these two lamps, I had to remove this wire from the terminal here of this tuning meter. You have to be very careful when you're desoldering from here, because you don't want to camp out on that terminal for a long time, overheat it and all that. So, you know, you got to get in and out, remove the wire. When this wire was attached, it was holding the plate. You know, it was pretty tight up against the plate when it was stretched and soldered to the terminal there. They didn't leave very much slack, so it was difficult a bit more difficult to get to that lamp on the right over here. So now it's a lot easier for me just to, pull this up and remove the lamp and replace them and all that. So that's really all that's involved there. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to, pull those out, kind of clean the contact surfaces there, retension them a little bit, put the new LED lamps in there, and then it's just a matter of getting that back in there. And that's it. There's a couple of screws down in there. You can see the screw holes. There's one over there and one over, down in here. And that's it. Screw that back in place. Reattach that wire again. You got to be real quick on the solder joint there. Just get in and out, and then you're in business. So that's really about it for that. So I'm going to end the video here, and like I always say, guys, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time.
This is a poor man's shoe production.